Channel message.
There are experiences that do not fully reveal themselves while they are happening. In the moment, the body is too busy surviving to understand what is really taking place. There is fear, confusion, loss of control, and the physical effort of staying calm while realizing something has gone wrong in a place where you should have been safe. The mind is not yet asking whether the situation was reckless, careless, intentional, or revealing. It is just trying to get through the next second. And sometimes in the middle of fear, there is one instruction that keeps returning. Relax. Not as permission to trust the situation, not as permission to ignore what is happening, but as an instruction for survival. Relax enough to breathe. Relax enough to hear direction. Relax enough to receive help. Relax enough to move. Then the danger passes. The water settles. The body gets dry. Everyone is standing on land again. And the person who created the situation begins acting as though it was funny, harmless, impulsive, or not worth carrying forward. They may tell the story with laughter in their voice. They may focus on the fact that everyone survived. They may act as though the only problem is that someone took it too seriously. That is often when the deeper injury begins, because the person who was afraid is finally left alone with the question that had no room to surface during the emergency. Why was I ever in that position to begin with? Why was the person closest to me not protecting me? Why did someone who claimed to love me ignore warnings, disregard risk, and create a situation where my safety depended on my ability to stay calm and get myself out? The part that haunts someone later is not always the event itself. It is what the event revealed. They do not only have to recover from fear, they have to reconsider the person standing beside them. They have to grieve the version of safety they thought they had. They have to ask whether the person they trusted was ever as careful with their life as they claimed to be. They were not only afraid of the water, they were afraid of what the water revealed about the person they loved. That is a different kind of pain. A stranger being dangerous is painful, but the mind can understand it. There was no promise of safety to reconcile with the danger. No intimacy attached to the betrayal. But when the person who should have been protecting you becomes part of the reason you need protection, the mind begins trying to hold two truths that do not belong together. The person says they care about me. This person made my safety negotiable. That fracture can keep someone reaching for softer language. Maybe they were reckless. Maybe they were immature. Maybe they were just playing too much. Maybe they did not think it through. Those explanations may be partly true. They still do not erase the central fact. Another person's life was treated like something that could be risked, minimized afterward, and folded into a joke simply because the worst outcome did not happen. Survival is not proof that the danger was imaginary. Getting back to land does not mean the water was harmless. Receiving help does not erase the fact that help became necessary in the first place. Some people rely on the outcome to excuse the choice. No one died, so it's not that serious. The crying stopped, so the fear must not be excessive. The story, it can be told with a laugh, so it should not be examined any further, right? But safety is not measured only by catastrophe. Safety is measured by what someone was willing to risk with you. Did they listen when they were warned? What did they do when fear became visible? What was the first instinct to protect? Was it you, or was it to protect their image afterward? Some things do not require an elaborate explanation before they are named as unacceptable. You do not create a situation someone cannot control, watch them become terrified, and then expect them to carry that fear like a joke afterward. You do not get to call yourself a protector simply because the person you endangered found a way to survive. And a person does not need courtroom level certainty about someone else's intention before they take their own fear seriously. They may never receive a confession. They may never hear someone say, I knew this could hurt you, and I did it anyway. They may never know exactly what was in the person's mind, but they can be uncertain about motive and completely certain that what happened made them feel unsafe. Their safety decisions do not require a confession. The question is not always whether someone wanted a tragedy. The question is, what kind of person can see another human being terrified? Recognize that they are no longer in control of their situation, right? And still expect that fear to be minimized afterward. The question becomes even more serious when the aftermath is filled with mocking, denial, blame, or pressure to get over it. The danger was one injury. Being asked to carry that danger as a joke has become another. People often misunderstand why someone does not immediately call for help, report what happened, or leave. They imagine danger creates one obvious next step. Tell someone, call the authorities, get out. But when the person creating the fear still has access to your home, finances, children, family, privacy, community, or daily life, every decision can carry consequences. Sometimes a person is not deciding whether they deserve help. They are calculating what may happen once everyone else leaves. Will the situation get worse behind closed doors? Will they be punished for involving other people? Will anyone believe them? Will the person who caused the harm, created the danger, become more determined to regain control? The silence is misunderstood because people ask why someone stayed silent, why they did not report it, why they kept trying to handle it privately. But fear is not consent. Silence is not proof that nothing happened. Hesitation is not proof that the danger was small or imaginary or not that serious. Sometimes silence is a survival calculation made by someone who knows the person hurting them may become more dangerous once they realize they are losing control. And when someone has already been trained to question yourself, manage their emotions, soften their language and their tone, protect their reputation, or carry responsibility for their reaction, even asking for help can begin to feel like betrayal. So even in the moment you need protection, you may still be trying to protect the person who made protection necessary. It's not weakness, it's coercion. That's what it does. It shifts the responsibility for the fallout onto the person that's in trouble. But there comes a point when survival becomes strategy. It's not a dramatic speech. It's not an argument designed to finally make the other person understand. It's not waiting for someone who created the danger, who created the dangerous situation to become honest enough to explain it. Strategy. A person begins looking at the situation as it is instead of as it was promised to be. They begin noticing what has to be protected. Their documents, their money, their housing, their privacy, their support system, their ability to move without reporting every decision to someone who has already shown you. They may use fear, access, information, or instability against them. They begin understanding that the safest plan is not always the loudest one. Sometimes the first act of leaving is no longer giving someone full access to your inner world. Keep that shit to yourself. Sometimes it is telling one trustworthy person the truth. Sometimes it is keeping a private record so your mind cannot be talked out of what it has lived through. Sometimes it is rebuilding independence in the places where dependence was used as leverage. Sometimes it is learning the difference between a conversation that creates clarity and a conversation that only gives someone another opportunity to manipulate the outcome. The details will be different for every person, but the shift is the same. They stop treating the person who hurt them as the authority over what happens next. They stop waiting for permission to protect their own future. They stop confusing temporary tenderness, fear of consequences, or remorse with an actual safety plan. They stop allowing someone else's volatility to become the architecture of their life. Wow. Whether the person creating the fear understands it consciously or not, the pattern can create a reality where fear starts doing the controlling for them. A person who is afraid to tell anyone becomes easier to isolate. A person who is afraid to call for help becomes easier to intimidate. A person who is always worried about making things worse can become consumed with managing the emotional weather of the very person creating the storm. That is the deeper trap. The danger is not always one moment. Sometimes the damage is that someone leaves you so uncertain, so socially exposed, and so concerned with their reaction that your entire life begins organizing itself around avoiding another episode. Your choices become smaller. Your movement becomes more careful. Your voice becomes quieter. Your future begins narrowing around the moods, retaliation, volatility, instability of someone else who's already shown you your safety does not matter. But being hurt and harmed does not mean you agreed to live inside the future another person was trying to create around you. You didn't consent to that. Being targeted does not mean you have to become a permanent resident of fear. Fear may not disappear overnight, but it does not have to remain the only voice making decisions. The voice that said, relax, was not trying to say, stay in a situation that is unsafe. It is not asking someone to trust the person who put them in danger. It was not telling them to dismiss their fear or remain available to harm. It was an instruction for the body. Do not let panic take over. Do not let it take over the part that you still need to hear the direction, receive help, and move. The guidance was not helping someone stay inside danger. It was helping them get out. There still has to be a part of the self left intact to understand later that this is not where my life ends. The protection did not only exist in the moment of survival, it existed in the part of them that would later refuse to hand the rest of their life over to someone who could make danger feel normal. That is why the emotional aftermath can be so intense, right? When the body finally reaches a quiet, it starts processing what the mind didn't have time to understand. The tears may come later. The shaking may come later. The sadness may come later. The anger may come later. That is the nervous system finally becoming safe enough to tell the truth about what happened. Something happened that should not have happened. Someone who was supposed to protect me was careless with my fear in my life. I survived something I was encouraged to minimize. The person who created the danger may be more concerned with being forgiven than with understanding why it was real. Once you understand that the person who was supposed to protect you is someone you now have to make plans around, the relationship stops being a question of feelings and becomes a question of strategy. It is no longer do they mean it? Do they understand? Will they finally admit what happened? It becomes, What do I need to do so I am never trapped in a moment like that again? Not another conversation where your fear gets reduced until it's something they can live with. Strategy. A place to go. Money that is yours. Documents you can reach. A person who knows the truth. A plan you do not hand to someone who's already shown you they use fear, intimidation, access, information, and instability against you. You don't tell them anything. Strategy. For some people, leaving happens in one day. For others, it happens in a sequence. You protect what matters. You move what you can move. You save what you can save. You tell the right person. You make arrangements quietly, right? You stop announcing every fear, every thought, and every next step to someone whose reaction is a part of the danger. Some people will call this gray rocking or stonewalling to that degree. The exit cannot be built on their apology. It cannot be built on temporary tenderness. It cannot be built on promises made once they realize you are serious. It has to be built on what you can secure before their reaction becomes another emergency you have to survive. And once you know this, there is no honest return to the version of the relationship you lived in before. There is no safe return to a reality that requires you to pretend you were not terrified, to pretend the danger was funny, to pretend humiliation was funny, to pretend the people who minimized it, defended it, or helped explain it away are still safe enough to trust. Let's not pretend. Because this is not hidden. Someone put your life at risk, watched you struggle, and then expected you to laugh it off as though your fear was a problem. That it is not a misunderstanding waiting to be explained correctly. That is information. They may want forgiveness. They may want access. They may want the relationship to return to the version where you carried the fear quietly so it wouldn't embarrass them and it would keep them comfortable. That's what you did. But you do not need to gamble your life on hope that someone who made survival necessary will become safer to return to. Let's not pretend. Their family and friends may call it dramatic. Their neighbors may say they did not mean it. They may insist you are throwing everything away over one moment. It was just a joke. I was just joking. I was just playing. But that is easy to say when they were not the one fighting. They're not the one fighting panic, trying to stay calm, trying to catch their breath, trying to survive, and then be asked to carry the whole thing as a joke afterward. Where's the punchline? Let's not pretend. You don't owe a return. You do not owe anyone a return to a reality that made you unsafe. Leaving will be frightening. Leaving may be frightening. It may feel lonely. It may feel financially uncertain. It may feel like grief. Grieving people who are not dead. It may feel like walking toward a life you don't know yet or how to build it. But unfamiliar is not the same thing as unsafe. A quieter life may feel strange before it feels peaceful. Accepting help may humble you. Starting over may exhaust you. But none of that costs more than remaining in an environment where your body has to stay alert to someone else's moods. Instability, retaliation, family denial, family retaliation, and just the pressure to forgive what they didn't have to survive. They don't have to carry it. They want to pretend. Let's not pretend. The fear of leaving is real. The fear of leaving is real. Let it make you strategic. Do not let it make you return. Have more faith in the part of you that recognize the danger than in the explanations offered by people who need the truth to be smaller, if not invisible. Your intuition may not hand you the whole map. It may only show you the next move, the next person to call, the next document to protect, the next door to walk through, the next place where you can breathe without waiting for someone else to decide whether you are allowed to feel safe. Follow that. The voice that told you to relax was not leading you back to the person who made survival necessary. It was helping you get through the moment so you could reach the part where leaving became possible. You were not guided through that danger just to be handed back to it. Reaching the shore did not prove they were safe. It proved your life was still yours to protect.
End of message.